What happens 2 years from now will be remembered forever. And let's say if the U.S. does make a semifinal, it will fundamentally change the way the game is viewed in the United States. If the U.S. shows up at this tournament 2 years from now and loses in the round of 32, the difference in the impact that will make is immeasurable. This is the chance, right? And the chance will not come. This is, if you've seen Oppenheimer, this is the moment the bomb drops. And either the bomb's going to go off and all of the U.S. is going to finally, the mainstream kind of id and ego of the U.S. is going to buy into soccer, or the bomb is a dud. And you've got to go back to the drawing board and rebuild a new one. And we get a whole other Christopher Nolan movie about some guy trying to start U.S. soccer a third time. Welcome to the Player Manager Podcast. I'm Zealand Shannon, back again with a man who continues to live up to his nickname with a beautiful assist last night, the Tony Cruz of South Florida, Julian Gressel. And today is a special road show because Julian's in a hotel and I am in Sweden. This is not how we are normally operating.
Player Manager on the road. Can you believe it?
Oh,
first show we're taken away from away from our usual spots. But how is Sweden?
Oh, it's great. It's the middle of the summer and it's like maybe 70 Fahrenheit here. It's just dead winter in Miami temperature right now.
Yeah.
Completely disorienting. I need a sweater to go outside with the wind. I don't even know what's happening.
That's cool, man. That's pretty sick. I mean, but I think you've been there a few days now, and you're gonna go to the Euros, right? That's I think the end.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good.
I've been here for 4 days visiting friends. Doing, I try and live up to being an internet streamer every once in a while. So doing some IRL streams, like going on roller coasters and stuff. I'm gonna eat some really poisonous looking and conspicuous sort of rotten fish that they're telling me they eat all the time in Sweden. I'm not believing it. It ships in a bulletproof type of container. Opening it on an airplane is illegal. It starts with an S. I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce it, but yeah, it's some sort of rotten fish thing that I am going to have to try on a live stream whenever we finish this podcast. So we can just keep going forever if that's okay with you. I'm fine with that.
Oh, that'll be amazing. Can't wait. I might have to jump on that stream.
Yeah, that'll be amazing. Freaking amazing to watch. Yeah, I'm sure. It's going to be great. But then I'm going to Berlin, and we finally know what match I'm watching, and it's going to be Netherlands-Turkey. My family and I are going to the Netherlands-Turkey quarterfinal in Berlin. Going to be the atmosphere is probably going to be second to none. I can't even imagine what it's going to be like.
Yeah, I mean, the Turkish national team has certainly brought out a lot of fans in Germany and Berlin. I mean, it's going to be that's the hot spot. So you're gonna see an amazing game with an incredible atmosphere. I think in general the atmosphere has been so great throughout the whole tournament. So it's amazing to see, and I'm jealous that you get to experience that.
Yeah, particularly like the German matches and the Turkish matches, and honestly the Dutch matches. So it's both the teams that are involved. Everybody that's got like a horse in the race here. And it's my dad's first major European match, and that's going to be the experience. It's probably going to blow his mind. He's not even going to know what's happening. I'm going to need to buy him a flare or something. He's going to be standing, in the stands waving it around.
Yeah,
it'd be perfect.
That's awesome.
And where are you in the world for the people that are listening to this?
So right now, well, happy 4th of July, by the way. Oh my gosh.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very patriotic on the other side of the world.
It's the 4th of July today. I am in Charlotte, and we played last night here, won the game, thankfully, and yeah, we've been on the road all week. Started the trip in Nashville, stayed there from Friday till Tuesday. Now came to Charlotte for the game, and now we're gonna stay here until tomorrow, and then fly to Cincinnati for big matchup in Cincinnati. But yeah, it's been a long week on the road so far, but it's also been good because we've won both games, so you make it worth it, But now I'm excited to kind of see what Charlotte is all about with. On the 4th of July, I think there's going to be a huge fireworks show tonight, and yeah, you kind of just have time on the road and away from your family. Unfortunately, during a holiday is not ideal in my opinion, but that's part of the job.
Yeah, it's true. Well, hey, my family lives in Charlotte. I got some family. You can get swept up in the Shannon clan festivities if you got nothing better to do. I'm sure they're going to have a nice big barbecue and go find some fireworks somewhere. Actually, a lot of them there. I could probably at least get you some Rex if you can remind me while I'm trying not to die from rotten Swedish fish. But we are going to touch more on that Inter Miami game, of course, later on in the podcast. And we're going to touch on Ronaldo crying, ? Does this mean Messi's the best player ever besides Julian Gressel on Inter Miami? And everything else happening in the Euros. But there's something that we just have to get to off the top recording this podcast. And that's that if you are listening, please drop us a rating, 5 stars, of course. If you believe that we have earned that. If not, watch me eat some rotten fish and I will earn your 5-star rating, because I'm going to gut it out in the name of the 4th of July, in the name of this podcast. I will finish that fish. It's a weird sentence. Anyways, the main thing besides the rating and the review is obviously the U.S. getting knocked out. I kind of just want to open the floor up. Like, we picked the U.S., both of us, to go through. We both know the U.S. is better than this. Gets grouped by Panama. What do we do now?
Yeah, that's it's a tough question to answer. I think obviously what has been done hasn't led to any results or any more results that you wish for. So, some people say that the best predictor of the future is the past, and that doesn't look great moving forward. But yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one for me because I do think there's happened some growth. There's a way of playing that has been established. Obviously, the players like that. They like that environment to go to, and be in there. Maybe a little bit too much. I think that's also an argument. But it's also you also kind of want to learn from these experiences together and potentially move on through the time and kind of evolve with what is there right now. But it's a tough one again, and I'm sure you have a bit more of a pinpoint answer to this, so I'll want to give you the floor for this. But for me, I'm obviously a player who is trying to kind of get back into that circle. So I'm not trying to take an excuse here for not being too specific, but it's tough for me to kind of take a real grand stand here because, one, I know what it's like in a tough team that has a tough time, that has had some tough results. And two, I'm more so on the outside right now, and I'm not really knowing what's exactly happening on a day to day. Obviously, there's certain instances that impacted the result of this tournament, especially throughout the 3 games that we can talk about. But why don't you go ahead and let me hear it?
Well, I think that there's so many different conversations that can be had about what happened and why it happened and whatever. But I think that if you're a national team, like if you're a national federation that takes itself seriously, which the U.S. Federation at least pretends to take itself very seriously and has goals of competing for major trophies, not just making it to the tournament, then if you're that type of team and you go into a tournament in pot 1 and you get drawn with a group where all you have to do is finish ahead of Panama and Bolivia to get to the quarterfinal, and you don't make it out of that group, everybody's fired. That's not a problem, right? That's not a bad, it's not, there are so many cases of people being overreactionary in the world of soccer, right? In the world of football, where a coach loses 3 games in the Premier League and they get fired. But yeah, there's a major international tournament every 2 years. Okay, international football, the calendar is really focused on one event. And if you show up with an Argentina or a Brazil or even a Netherlands or a Belgium and you go to the World Cup and you lose in the group, even if it's to teams way better than Panama and Bolivia, you get fired. That's just what happens because you're supposed to do better than that. The expectation and the talent level is better than that.
Yeah.
So I don't think it is hating on Greg Berhalter, hating on the U.S. Federation to be like, oh, you made the wrong choice. Why did you bring him back? It's like you could have made the right choice if he didn't just lose to Panama. But the bottom line is that he did. Right. And Tim Way punched a guy in the back of the head. Right. Maybe
Yep.
Tim Way was just feeling particularly patriotic and he wanted a regime change. Maybe that's I don't know. Right. But to me, the most discouraging part of it is if you want to get granular past the fact that no matter what happened, this result is completely unacceptable. if you zoom in, the U.S. isn't creating a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, against Bolivia, the U.S. dominated, but Bolivia was the worst team in this group. That became pretty apparent. Panama is okay, but they should not in any way, at any position on the field, in terms of resources and investment in anything, be able to hold a candle to what the U.S. should be capable of doing.
Yeah.
And so for us to actually just go out and lose that game in a way where even though we're down a man, like you're telling me if even Colombia goes down a man to Panama, that they're playing that reserved. So I obviously spend a ton of time playing Football Manager. You're familiar with it. XG is a big thing. If you lose a game and you have a ton of XG, you can make an argument that you should keep the manager around.
Yeah.
But in the game against Uruguay, where you have to win, there's just not a lot of ideas there. There's not a lot of, it feels like we're playing Gareth Southgate ball, except Gareth Southgate actually manages to somehow get towards the end of tournaments anyways. And we get to a point where we seemingly get outplayed. And the only team in the top 25 that Greg Berhalter has managed to beat while leading the U.S. is Mexico. And I mean, Mexico is historically bad right now. They're just really bad. And they got Group 2. So shout out to them. Shout out to Canada and Panama for being the only two CONCACAF teams that get forward. So I think people over zoom in on it, and the people that justify keeping Greg around as the coach over zoom in on it. But if you've been the coach for a team for 6 years and your argument is the team's making progress and you get grouped at your own Copa America, at your home tournament by Panama, that should be it. There should be nothing, should be no other part to that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a valid point and a valid way for you to look at it and kind of evaluate it. And yeah, I think you're right. There's this sport is so driven by how you perform, and at the end of the day, the performance hasn't been there. I think you mentioned the record, so there's definitely arguments for it to change, obviously, the coach and change the direction, right, of how these next 2 years are going to go. I think if you do that, you set a little bit of an impulse with the group of players, right? Everybody kind of is maybe a little bit more on their toes, depending on obviously who the new coach is. You maybe you get them out of the comfort zone a little bit. Guys that have obviously, guys that go to Europe or that play in Europe at high level leagues in high level teams that are, doing the things on a weekly basis, in terms of pressure. They're handling that pressure every week and they're performing. And then when it comes to the national team, I don't know if it feels like a little bit like, oh, nice, it's nice to be together, guys. Hey, what's going on? Instead of like, let's go. Like Tim Weah punching a guy, is not acceptable. And it's not, especially in a moment like that, it's just simply not acceptable. I would be absolutely pissed if I was his teammate, and I'm sure the guys were. And obviously he apologized and everything, but those things have real consequences. But you mentioned the way they played and how they sat back against Panama. Like it's tough, but you were up a goal. You scored a goal within the next few minutes after getting the red card, and then just the game just changed, right? So there's, like I said, different moments throughout the tournaments, and the lack of opportunity creating, especially against Uruguay. I mean, yeah, they are a good team, right? And they are defensively sound, and they're intense, and they're tough to break down, and all these things. And but you have to manage to find ways, right? And that's what knockout football, and the margins are so thin, and guys do it. Pulisic does it for Milan in a top league every weekend, and so it's really, really tough for me to just say yes one way or another. But you are obviously more on the Greg Berhalter needs to go, right?
Well, I mean, 6 years is a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, really, being the coach of a national team for 6 years, he had kind of the World Cup cycle, and he built a team up. And look, when Berhalter, his contract ran out, and there was the investigation, no wrongdoing found, and they convened a new committee to rehire him again. There was an argument, right? I didn't think he should be rehired, but my argument was based more on the way the team was playing and less on the results of the team,
Yeah.
right? Where the team was still getting results. We were winning the Nations League, which is the most important tournament in CONCACAF. We got out of the group stage at the World Cup, so there was no. Obviously, I would have loved to have played a game against the Netherlands where I felt for 2 seconds like we had a chance to win, which it didn't. But that was kind of part of my argument, was that the team I didn't think was playing the way that it could play.
Yeah.
But that, I mean, every fan seems to believe that at one point or another. So when they brought Berhalter back, as much as I would joke around with my friends like, oh, they're bringing him back, it's like there was an argument for him coming back based off of the results that had happened.
Yeah.
Now
I
the
think it was
results.
the right thing to do as well, because I thought you
Okay.
had momentum. You played well in the World Cup. You can lose to the Netherlands, in my opinion. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, I like, that's one of those things where that is where the U.S. is now. Like, if you want to take the U.S. to where I hope it can go, and where maybe some people would say even it should be at some point, you've got to be able to at least make the Netherlands sweat in that game.
Yeah.
And that is the game. That's the game that honestly the U.S. always loses, right? It was the last time it made the round of 16, 8 years before that. It was Belgium, and it lost. It pushed it to extra time, but then gave up 2 goals in extra time, and it kind of ended that way. And before it was Ghana. Like, you get to the round of 16 and you lose. That's just, we were Mexico light there for a little while. But the idea that he's always been selling is we're going to change the way that the world looks at American soccer, right? And then that we're going to develop. And what really drove me crazy is that even though the team got knocked out, all I was hearing from Berhalter and some of the other guys, which obviously the players have a lot more on their mind than saying anything that they want to say, right? I'm very aware of that. This is why I don't go too hard in on somebody like Matt Turner, where he comes out and says, I think we're headed in the right direction or whatever. Matt Turner, love the guy. It was great having him on the podcast. He is one of the best media trained people on the face of the earth, right? Like, you're just in those situations in particular. Matt Turner is going to say, I don't really know what the right term is, but he's going to say what he believes is kind of the best thing to help his team in the future, right? Not necessarily what is on his mind. And so what probably I would say disturbed me the most is somebody like Berhalter saying, well, I saw some good things and thought we were moving in the right direction. Where I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, I never believed that, but now the results don't believe it either.
Yeah.
We're the first team to ever host Copa America and not even get out of the group stage, right? We just watched Canada, the U.S. finally seems to have taken this step where it's like, okay, now we're going to play all these European guys. 0 MLS minutes, right? Maybe it should have had some MLS minutes. Canada had over 1,000 MLS minutes on its team and finished ahead of Peru and Chile in its group. So, I mean, do we need to go back to, seriously, do we need to go back to calling up a half MLS team, get you out there again, right? And then all of a sudden we're going to start getting these results and beating Spain in the Confed Cup and stuff, because I am concerned by the idea that we're making progress still, even though it feels like we're going backwards. It's like the team's getting better, but the results are getting worse. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's always like, you look at the team and everybody says, right, it's the most talented team the U.S. has ever had, and I think it is, right? But talent doesn't get you the results, and that's, I think, what we're finding out right now, right? I mean, it is still a very, very young team, right? You have guys that are under 25, a lot of them. So there is still experience to be gained, and knowledge, and all these moments that you go through as a team together, and as a nation, as a federation together, that are learning moments. And that's what this has to be. But like I said in the beginning, I think the best predictor of the future is also kind of what has happened in the past. And like you said, 6 years is a long time. So we will certainly see how the federation handles this one after they go into their review, as they said, and and then we'll kind of just see what happens, and kind of how they want to structure those next 2 years to go on, and hopefully not have this happen in 2 years, right? That would be worst case.
Yeah, I mean, this is everything else in sports. You can always pretend that you're building for the future. You don't host World Cups.
Yes.
Ever. Right. I mean, the best case scenario, you host one every 30 years. If you're like Mexico, Brazil, or apparently the United States, right? You host a World Cup every 30 to 40 years. This opportunity doesn't happen. What happens 2 years from now will be remembered forever. And let's say if the U.S. does make a semifinal, it will fundamentally change the way the game is viewed in the United States. If the U.S. shows up at this tournament 2 years from now and loses in the round of 32, the difference in the impact that will make is immeasurable. This is the chance, right? And the chance will not come for another 30 years. The game is growing steadily. You obviously live in the U.S. You're, I'm sure, very familiar with the fact that the game's a lot more popular than it was even 10 years ago. But this is, if you've seen Oppenheimer, this is the moment the bomb drops. And either the bomb's going to go off and all of the U.S. is going to finally, like the mainstream, the mainstream kind of id and ego of the U.S. is going to buy into soccer, or the bomb is a dud. And you've got to go back to the drawing board and rebuild a new one. And we get a whole other Christopher Nolan movie about some guy trying to start U.S. soccer a third time, right? So this is the moment. And to me, like you're saying, if you've had 6 years to test out Greg Berhalter to figure out if this is going to be the guy that can be Oppenheimer, can drop the bomb and change the world, it just doesn't feel like he's got that. But I have a feeling, because either you fire him right after the tournament, or you go through this comprehensive review, you wait for the initial hatred to die down, and you announce that he's staying, right? I have a feeling, it's been a few days, it'll be maybe a day or two later by the time this podcast comes out. It's a sinking feeling. I think he's staying, though. Well, what do you think is actually going to happen?
My thinking is that there's too much pressure on U.S. soccer to not make the change, so that I think he's going to get fired.
So you think it's going to happen?
This is my thought, right? I don't know if I want it to happen. Like I said, I'm pretty much right smack dab in the middle of that. But I think that the growing pressure from media, from fans, and all that, it would feel almost like you're not trying to do everything you can to have the best possible result in the World Cup. That's how that's how it would look to the outside. Even though I know 100% that that's all they're trying to look at, is how can we best possibly prepare to have the best possible result in 2026, right? And that might be with Greg Berhalter. That might be the reality. But my feeling is that they are going to change him, and it'll be somebody else. Are you on the Jurgen Klopp train?
There's no way I buy that. There's no way I buy that for a second. I've seen this. It's Tim Howard has gone on the record, and he's normally a pretty soft-spoken guy, honestly. But Tim Howard has come out and said, I believe the quote is, "I could 100% talk Klopp into managing the U.S. national team." And look, if Tim Howard is right, fire Berhalter and put Tim Howard on a plane tonight. The thing is, I just don't think Tim Howard is right. Yeah. I love the confidence. There's no way. Okay, I mean, the job was vacant in 2022. And I think that was when maybe the U.S. finally got a dose of humble pie, because you got to probably bounce off of a couple of big names, and they all just said, I don't know. Yeah. But now that the World Cup is really the only thing you would have to do as the U.S. manager, it wouldn't be a 4-year job. It would be a 2-year job, basically. I mean, because after a home World Cup, any national team is going to go through a whole resetting process. This is what you were crescendoing up to. I think maybe you could attract somebody with a big name with a 2-year project. Say, look, sign a 2-year deal. Be the, at the very least, grow your brand in the U.S. by 100 times, right? Become the face of all of this. But Jurgen Klopp, I mean, he looked so tired at Liverpool.
He is. I think he is tired.
Yeah, that guy wears himself out managing. I would be stunned. Are you buying it at all? I would be completely stunned.
Me too. I don't think he wants to. I don't think he wants to. I don't think he will take that job. But I do think there's some intriguing candidates out there, right? And that's. I think now that you mentioned it, it's more of a short term project, right? Rather than this long. You got to really change a lot of different things for longer periods of time. So maybe it is more appealing to coaches. But I mean, in terms of American coaches, I know there's a few good ones in MLS. I think that could do a good job. I look at Steve Cherundolo at LAFC. Those types of guys. Obviously, Jim Curtin's done a really good job in Philly. who I think had publicly come out and said that he would drop the job right now and would go as an assistant and do everything he possibly can to help the U.S. national team. Wilfred Nancy, right in Columbus, not American, but has been here now a long time, has done well. My opinion is not the best national team coach. I've had him, and I think it takes some time to develop his ideas, and he really likes to have time with his players and his team to really instill his way of playing, and that is not the greatest thing when you only always get a week or two together usually. So he might not be the best guy in my opinion, but honestly, I think we'll see. It's a toss up. I don't know if you saw this, but I don't know if you saw Jesse Marsh's comments about what's happened. I think they're valid comments, but I think he's a Canadian national team coach. I don't know if he needs to make those comments, and I'm sure there was a little bit.
What did he say? What did he? I might have missed this because I'm traveling. What did he say?
I think he was just more like saying how disappointed it is and how there's a lack of discipline and basically what we had talked about just now and how
Yeah.
he's just obviously looking at it and it's not been a great showing and he's disappointed that the team went out and all these things and sure there was a little bit of a backstab in that sense because he was one of the guys I think that would have replaced Greg Berhalter back after the World Cup. So I don't love him coming out as a national team coach for Canada, honestly, but there's candidates out there, and we'll kind of just have to wait and see, I guess. As of right now, as of our recording right now, he's still the coach. Greg Berhalter is still the coach.
Yeah, that's a good thing to point out. It might happen. It's one of the news could drop at any time, but it could also not drop at all. And all that other stuff. Jesse Marsh said that he felt he was. This was earlier that he was treated unfairly, and it was a really weird hiring interview process with the U.S. So I think there's just a ton of bad blood between Jesse Marsh and the people running U.S. soccer. Also, Jesse Marsh has got to be. I mean, if I was him, I would be sitting on some sort of high horse, having taken Canada to the knockouts where the U.S. goes home. He's definitely sitting up there just saying, see, look what I can do.
For sure.
And I'm sure endearing himself to the Canadians who are probably like,
I know.
Talk trash.
I know.
Perfect. But would you, this is an interesting question. I think it might weigh on the U.S. Federation's mind, maybe even more than it should. But going into particularly a home World Cup, would hiring somebody like Jurgen Klopp, who is not American, never lived in America, does that matter? Should that matter?
I think no. I think anybody that will take the job will have an understanding of what it entails, what it means. And Jurgen Klopp would know that maybe he wouldn't have the emotional connection to it, which might actually be a good thing. So maybe to get an outsider in and then kind of pick and choose his assistants a little bit that know what the U.S. is about and all these things might work out. I think might be the best way to go, but I don't necessarily think you need to have an American that has all this pressure on him now to lead, to revamp U.S. soccer and kind of put it into this trajectory that it will hopefully go into. But I don't think it needs to be that.
Well, there was the rumor that Marcelo Bielsa was interested in being the coach of the U.S. in 2022. He was actually free. He's, of course, the coach of Uruguay now.
Well, Tata was also rumored, right? My coach right now.
Oh, really?
I thought so, yeah.
But then they came out and they said that the head coach of the U.S. has to be able to speak fluent English. Yeah. That was like a hiring requirement. Of course, Bielsa doesn't speak any English. He has his famous translators that are always following him around. But I will point out, as somebody that is obviously a connoisseur of this side of the game, that the Saudi Arabia team that upset Messi did not have a coach that spoke Arabic. And the Turkish team right now that's in the quarterfinals of the Euros has a coach that does not speak Turkish. And so it is possible to lead a national team via translator and it actually work. I don't know why it works so well. I feel like it should matter more. But you can achieve great results and great victories for your country without it actually being your country or even a language that you speak. So shout out to those guys, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I don't know. It's tough for me to say, honestly. I mean, I have a coach right here that doesn't speak my language naturally, right? In Tata. And it doesn't bother me, so it's something that you can manage around if that's going to be the case. But we'll certainly just have to wait and see. Like I said, I think we're talking all these hypotheticals right now. We're like,
Mm.
we're just gonna.
I will think that if Greg Berhalter stays the coach, because of what you were pointing out, this kind of avalanche of everybody going, okay, now is the time. A lot of the media outlets that stuck with Berhalter and everything all turning around and going, now's the time. That it would be a very awkward and uncomfortable 2 years leading up to the World Cup if he stays the coach.
Yeah.
There would not be that buildup of good vibe. There would be a lot of animosity and tension around the national
Well,
team
that's
leading
why I
into it.
mentioned the kind of pressure, right, and the perception of you almost trying to not do everything possible to get to that, right, and that's kind of part of it. Where I see it with Germany, and we can talk about the Euros after this because I feel like we've covered the US now
Yeah.
quite a lot. But I see it with
I feel like we could probably talk about the U.S. situation for multiple
Yeah.
podcasts, but you're right. Yeah. With
But
Germany.
yeah, I see it with Germany because you have this, the catastrophic run of form in the World Cups and the Euros before, and Qatar obviously was a disaster. And then Hansi Flick leaves, and you get a new coach in. Yeah, even though the results weren't great leading up to the Euros, all of a sudden you have a couple really good performances right before, and then the country is flying and everybody's like, we're going to win the Euros. And now you back it up by actually playing that way too. And I watched a documentary the other day about some guys. I think it was Ter Stegen, Phil Krug, and Gosens, who actually didn't make the squad, about the lead up to the Euros and how they were talking about kind of the system and the new coach coming in, and what they were training, and kind of just that 2 year process leading up to the Euros in this moment. It was really, really interesting to kind of see how enthusiastic they were, how they were believing in that process, how even though results didn't go their way early on, they were able to kind of stick with it and form this identity, this new identity with the national team. And all of a sudden, everybody believes there, and all of a sudden you get those results. And obviously Germany is playing well, and they're probably going to have a final in the quarterfinals now against Spain. But it was really fascinating to see, and that's kind of what you want, right? You want to have this. Okay, results have been mediocre at best, or terrible now, obviously as of late. How can we change? How can we change to get to where we want to be in 2026? And that's what the sole focus and the sole, yeah, just strategy should be.
Yeah, and you know what? We're not in that room, so there's a couple people that are in that room that are going to have to make that decision, and I hope they get it right. Right, whatever that right answer is that allows us to make that World Cup semifinal, and shoot, that allows us to win the whole thing. Let's make that
Yes.
decision. That'll be perfect. But on to the German turnaround story, and on to the Euros in general, because obviously a lot has happened to the European Championships since the last time we touched on it. Not the least of which is going to be me trying a tuna fish pizza over the next couple of days.
Oh
So
yeah.
keep your eyes tuned to Instagram for that. I'll be texting Julian a review of the tuna fish pizza. My dad will be so happy. I don't even remember. I'm going to get distracted here. I don't even remember if I told you this. My dad is a huge fan of just canned tuna
Yeah, he
fish.
needs
Like
to eat it too.
it's gonna be it's great. He never eats any foreign food ever, so this is gonna
I
this
love
is
it.
the food that is made perfectly for him. But Germany handled its business in the round of 16. Has the game of the round in the quarterfinal against Spain. I think it's probably got a shot to be the match of the tournament. These are the two good teams that have been playing like good teams the entire tournament, right? You have Portugal, France, and England that have backed their way into this quarterfinal. This is just an incredible game, and I am so excited to watch it.
Yeah, me too. It's gonna be fun, especially me watching here with the two
Dude.
fellows from Spain, and Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba. I mean, who would have thought that I would ever sit in a room and watch Germany versus Spain, and we go at each other, and like it's like, yeah, just I don't know if we're gonna have a bet. I have to talk to Jordi. Jordi likes to like have these little bets and stuff, and so I'm sure we'll bet something. But yeah, it's gonna be an amazing game. And like I said before, I think it's the final of the tournament. I think the two teams that have played the best from the start, and that deserve to be obviously in this spot. And honestly, they deserve both to go on, of kind of what they've been like. And I hope the Spanish team won't retire Tony Kroos. That would be it'd be like too how do you say it? It would, yeah,
Poetic would be.
or yeah, just like I don't know. It's like written in the stars that he's been in Spain for so long, and now all of a sudden the
Oh
Spanish
yeah,
national
yeah.
team
That
retires him from soccer in general. But
would...
yeah, it's funny how that plays
I
out.
didn't even
But
think about that.
yeah, it's
Yeah, that is actually well, and it's his teammate Hostelou that said that at the press conference too.
yeah,
He said like, "I love Tony, but we're going to try and retire him." And then
yeah,
that's really the first time you sit there and you're like, "Oh, this could be Tony Cruz's last game."
could be.
Do you have you been like verbally jousting with Busquets and with Jordi Alba about this game? Have they walked by you in the locker room or something and been like, "Hey"?
Before Spain had won against Georgia, we talked about it. It was like almost like a given that they were going to win. So I was like, yeah, now they're going to play Spain on Friday. Going to be incredible. And but ever since then, no, not yet. So now as it kind of builds up towards it, I think, and after we had done our business this Wednesday, yesterday, so now we have time to talk about this stuff and kind of see, tomorrow at noon when we tune in together and watch, watch that game. I don't know if I'll watch it with them or not yet. I don't know.
Okay, I didn't know they're like just giant official watch party would be hilarious with like the three of you guys in
Yeah.
front just wearing the colors. That'd be,
It's just gonna be
uh,
weird for me because I feel like all the South Americans on our team are obviously gonna root or gonna be with Jordi and Sergio and on this. So it's just gonna be like it'll feel like
mm.
everybody will be against me. So we'll see how I handle that. But it'll be an interesting setting. But I'm certainly just looking forward to the game. And knockout games are fun. Even in Copa America now, knockout games are there, and you have England all of a sudden finding ways, right, with Jude Bellingham to advance.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite goals, maybe of any tournament
I
ever. I
know.
mean, who scores a
Yeah.
95th minute bicycle kick to not get eliminated? But then there's all sorts of controversy with the celebration, and I don't know. There seems to be a lot of controversy between the national team of England and the fans, that the national team doesn't like appreciate the fans' support enough, and the national team is like, hey, you guys keep kind of dumping on us. And Bellingham, I think, said something in the post game press conference. He doesn't have Matt Turner's like media training skills yet, maybe, but he showed up to the post game press conference and he basically just said, you get a lot of shtick. It's nice to be able to give it back sometimes, in a moment like this, which I thought sounded completely normal. Like you're just like every rap song ever, you're just saying, oh, the haters, like I showed the haters what's up, basically.
Yeah.
I think I said that in the whitest way possible, but you get the idea. And then all of a sudden, the England fans writ large thought that he was dumping on all of them. That he was like saying he was kind of an fu to all of the England fans. I feel like that's a delicate balance when you're in that situation, though, when you're trying to answer press conference questions and trying not to anger the fans at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. But everybody's different. You have guys that are super media trained that only say the right things, and you have guys that are a bit more outspoken. They're a bit more themselves, um, and Jude's still very young too, so maybe he'll learn eventually. But I mean, it's weird how the English fans like almost have this like love hate relationship with him, where they give him the stick all the time, but then he always delivers. I mean, he's so young and has now won a Champions League. He's now obviously scored this incredible goal for England, and they're gonna give him all this all this hate almost. But yeah, I don't mind it. I don't mind having guys with personality as long as it obviously doesn't get taken too far. But that type of personality I think is good for the game, and it just shows that you're not just this puppet that everybody can say stuff to and talk about. And we've talked about this plenty on podcasts before about obviously stuff on social media. But yeah, it's certainly cool to see, to have him kind of, yeah, maybe react a little bit different than other people would.
And then there's also there's the contingent of fans that dump on somebody like Jude Bellingham for celebrating as much as he did, when it was a goal against just Slovakia.
Yeah.
I think that's just the dumb. I mean, when are you? I hate the celebration police so much because when are you supposed to celebrate? It's the knockouts of the Euros.
Yeah, it's like, who do they think Slovakia? Like, they didn't get there just by saying, "Hey, here we are. Let's play this round of 16 game against England." No, it's a team that earned their way in there. That are tough to beat and that are tough to break down. And like, people have to understand that there's two sides to this. That, yes, like Inter Miami, right? We want to play our way and we want to do this, but there's an opponent every time. You literally have to like almost fight. Like, in terms of Tim Weah, he actually did fight him, but
Yeah, don't do
yeah,
that. By the way, yeah, that doesn't end
you don't
well.
want to do that. But it's not just like what you trying to do is always going to happen, and all you mess up. No, it's the opponent that plays a huge factor in what you are trying to do and how you're trying to do it. And teams like Slovakia, or even, I mean, Georgia made it out of the groups. Like teams like that, they find ways and they fight and they scrap. And you can go back to Copa America as well with Panama. They found a way, and they ultimately, were just tough to beat in that moment, and also found a way to win the game at the end and scored the goal. So there's always two sides to this, and that's why it's just Slovakia, and these types of comments are just, there's not a single game out there that is easy to play.
It's like I'm basically sitting here. It's like, okay, well, it's the knockouts of the Euros, which everybody should be able to acknowledge is a pretty big deal, right? This is a major international tournament, and you're playing against another team that earned its way in there. And oh, by the way, they beat Belgium in the group stage, right? Who is, I know it's kind of a running meme at this point, but is the third best team in the world according to FIFA rankings. So, the celebration police might be my least favorite part of the fandom, but that was a large. We should have been beating Slovakia before. It's like, well, if they were that easy to beat, they wouldn't be here in the first place. They take on Switzerland, which I feel like is just a better version of Slovakia. I feel like England might actually lose that game.
We'll see. I mean, right now, honestly, like, for me, those games are so tough to predict. Like, there's not a single favorite for me anymore. These are now quarterfinal games where, yeah, Switzerland has been playing really well, and England at times hasn't been playing well, but they found a way, right? And that, I think, is what knockout tournaments or knockout rounds are all about: finding a way. And Turkey did it. They found a way with set piece goals. There's things that can go your way, or they can go the other way. And there's things, obviously, with the referee. I know that played a part in the U.S. men's national team game as well against Uruguay. But those are things that are outside of your control. What the opponent does is outside of your control. You can only control what you can control. Jude Bellingham could only control that when the ball was coming towards him like that, to do a bicycle kick and score the goal, and he did it unbelievably.
How dare he? How dare he score that bicycle?
So maybe they'll totally take him out of the game, and that's not because he doesn't want to perform again, but that's because there's an opponent to all this. So I'm intrigued by Switzerland. I'm intrigued by how they've played. England has looked good, not great. So yeah, we'll see. But I certainly watched Portugal. Did you watch that game?
Yeah, of course. All everybody took away was Ronaldo crying, but I was really impressed by Slovenia. I just felt so terrible that they got all the way to that penalty shootout and then just missed. It got saved every single time. I don't know if I've ever seen. I mean, I've seen 3 non-goals, but 3 really solid saves, and then it's just over.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen a shootout that plays out that particular way.
See, you see solid saves, and me as an outfield player, I see terrible penalties.
I thought the first 2 were pretty good penalties. The third one, that dude was freaking out. You could see with the run up, and he did this whole, like, he tried to do a Jorginho stutter step thing, but he messed it up and then just shot the ball, and the guy saved. But in his defense, you play for Slovenia, right? I don't even know who took the third penalty, just terrible ball knowledge on my part, but I'm assuming he doesn't play in that kind of limelight regularly. And you watch the first two get saved, you basically have to score, the Euros are over. That's destructive amounts of pressure.
Yeah.
But that goalkeeper, I do love that. I was watching it going, this goalkeeper is just on fire, because those first two saves were really, really, really impressive. And he saved Ronaldo too.
I know, he
Saved him.
did. Ronaldo was certainly crying after that first miss. I mean, it shows you how much it means to him, right? Which is good to see, but to kind of not have your emotions in control like that after so many years, I don't know. I don't love that. To be honest with you, because the game was still going on and you could still make an impact. Okay, maybe after the game and you end up losing, okay, different story. You can have all the emotions, but while you're still in the game, while you're heading into extra time and you're kind of out like in your team huddle and you have tears in your eyes, and it's not for me. But he kind of redeemed himself in the penalty shootout as well, where kudos to him for stepping up, and that also shows a lot of perseverance and a lot of fight in him. And obviously he's done it throughout his whole career, but I love that he stepped up and took the first penalty and kind of tried to lead by example again. But certainly cool, not cool, but certainly interesting to see how he missed that penalty in the regular 90 minutes.
It was not a great penalty.
No.
That one I was looking at, because Oblak went so
Yeah.
early. I mean, he was basically standing in the corner of the goal by the time that shot was taken. That's interesting though, because I feel like that might just be your elite athlete mentality, which I obviously don't have. Where I'm watching this and I'm going, as long as he keeps playing hard, like I don't have an issue with him kind of crying in that, because I would think it was at the end of regular time. It was before extra time or something, that he was kind of, like on the shoulder of a teammate or whatever. But the fact that he did step up and take the first penalty to me, that was going, okay, he just had a bit of a breakdown, obviously, like the pressure just kind of hit him, but he bounced back from it. So I didn't have as much of an issue with it, but I was aware that a lot of people did have an issue with it, and they have an issue with Ronaldo being in the starting lineup. But I think that's a tricky situation to try and navigate if you're the coach of Portugal.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, but I have some Portuguese friends from my time back in college, and they, before the tournament started, I talked to them, and they're like, "Yeah, I don't really want Ronaldo to start all these things, and you're gonna have to start him if he's there." It's like it's this thing, right? What it's tricky, but they're through. They're on to the quarterfinals, and now they play France, who obviously can't seem to, who have a 12th man in own goal always with them, but who can't seem to lose for some reason. They just keep advancing, and it's
Yep. I mean, 0 goals from the run of play, and you're in the quarterfinal. That is finding a way right there. That's what that is. And that game is, if there was ever a 0-0 all the way to penalties in my life, it was France-Portugal, based off the way they've played in this tournament. But it will be intense, and both of those teams are good, and we'll see if Ronaldo can exercise those demons. But it's time to talk about Inter Miami and the match that you played. It's unusual for us recording, but the match that you played literally last night against Charlotte. I was, of course, sent in my role as your fashionable sidekick on this podcast. I was sent your assist multiple times. Excellent pass, by the way.
Gressel tries to play that through Kramowski. He's got the final touch, and Inter Miami are ahead late on. What a ball that was from Gressel.
Congratulations on your 100th career goal contribution, which I don't know if you know this. I don't know if the producer also kind of sent this to you. You were now the 12th active player to reach 100 goal contributions. Beautiful. Well, sorry, that was your 101st, but you hit the 100th, before we got to this. So I read that off and make it sound nice for you. But congrats, seriously. That is a huge number.
No, I appreciate it. It was it's every time you hit these milestones. I think this was actually, now in this game, was my 75th assist at MLS. So it's those are cool moments where you can like take a second to just, I've tried to make a point, especially this year, to always take a second and enjoy the moment. At least for 1 minute or 2 minutes, and then kind of be like, okay, now you've enjoyed it, now you can move on, and now you can get to the next. Now you can try and get to the next milestone. So whenever these kind of things come up, it's certainly nice. And to have an assist like yesterday, where it's the 85th minute, it's late in the game, it's 1-1, and then you play a ball like that, and then you end up having the game-winning goal or game-winning assist in that sense feels good, and to help the team. I think I've obviously been on a pretty good run of form lately. I think 5 goal contributions in the last 5 games, 1 goal, 4 assists.
You're playing the Messi role as well as anybody could be hoping to replace Messi right now. I'll tell you.
I'm no Messi, and we established that last week, I think, as well. But no, it's been a good run of form, and we've obviously strung together a lot of 2-1 wins, and especially in tough places. So we're excited where we're at. We're excited to have these results without Suarez, Messi in the team, and being able to stay on top of the table, and now face a huge matchup, obviously, the Saturday against Cincinnati, where it's the first versus the second, and just everybody kind of has been waiting for that matchup, and both teams not at full strength, unfortunately, but at the same time, what a cool matchup to go into, and what a cool matchup to go into feeling good. I'm excited for that one, and certainly enjoyed the moment, but now I want more.
The momentum is building, not just for Inter Miami, but for Julian Gressel's Messi cosplay, which has been going on for the last couple of weeks and has been absolutely on fire. That match against Cincinnati, how are you expecting it to play out, and how much have you guys talked about it going into it? Because that's dominating the MLS docket this weekend. That's the game.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we haven't talked about it too much, but it's been on our minds for this whole trip, right? I would be lying if you don't look forward to it. But now, the last 2 games have been behind us. We just played last night. I literally woke up and turned on my computer, and here I'm sitting here with you. So we haven't spoken about it at all. I haven't even seen my teammates yet today. So I'm sure now.
I'm honored.
I'm sure now we will kind of turn the page and fully prepare. Obviously, recover. That's really all you can do: recover, and then have a little bit of a tactical meetings, more so than kind of stuff on the field. Just because of the midweek game. But yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be I love that stadium. I think that's the best stadium in MLS in terms of atmosphere, in terms of how it looks and how it feels. I go back there with a lot of good memories, because last time I was on that field, I celebrated the Eastern Conference Championship last year with Columbus. So you have some good feelings also going back there, and I'm excited. It's going to be top matchup. Everybody's going to watch, and the atmosphere in that stadium is incredible, where I know the fans will bring it as well. So, hopefully we can end this long week and this kind of spell with a really, really big win, and kind of maybe put a little bit of separation between ourselves and Cincinnati on the table. But yeah, we're looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to watching it. I will try to tune in from Germany. We'll see. It's going to be delirious time. But the next time we meet for this podcast, I will have tried tuna fish pizza and have gone to a Euros match, and you will have played Cincinnati. So we have a big week coming up.
That is a cliffhanger. Yeah. That's a cliffhanger right there for the next one.
We will. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will see you next week. Please follow us if you haven't already on Instagram @PlayerManagerPod. Share the pod with your friends, one friend or all of your friends, whatever works for you. And thank you so much for listening. Until next time, goodbye.
Bye, guys.